And I wanted to introduce Bill Couchard, who is going to just say a word or two about Service Rocket. Do you want to?
Only 2 words?
A couple of sentences.
All right.
I've got 2 words. It's awesome.
It's awesome. Yes, thank you for coming. This is Service Rocket. I'm Bill, and this is our space. I hope you enjoy the dome. And it does open, so maybe next time. And I'm just glad to have everyone here. I hope you're comfortable. And enjoy the show.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks very much. So the format for tonight is going to be Andrew and I, and I'll let Andrew introduce himself in a moment, are going to have a nice little chat with each other about customer success areas. And then we're also going to take questions from you guys, and we have a few questions for you as well, because we want this to be an interactive session. So before we get started, just so we can kind of know who's in the room, by a show of hands, how many of you work in a B2B company? Okay, the majority. How many in a B2C company? A few? A couple? And who does both? Any of the B2Bs also do B2Cs? Okay, great, thank you. And how many of you work, would consider your corporate culture to be customer-centric, outside in? Not enough.
Better than none.
Better than none, that's very true. That's one of the topics that we're going to talk about tonight. But I want to give Andrew a chance to introduce himself. And if you could kind of share a little bit about the journey of your career and who you are today, you know, at Norton Symantec, and what you've kind of done so far.
Great. I could talk for hours on that, so we'll cut me off when that makes sense. So it's great to be here. Thank you. And I should say, wow. I didn't realize there's this many people as passionate about customer success as I am. My family thinks I'm a bit of a freak, I guess, in that regard. They still don't quite know what I do, but it's good to see that I have company, which is very encouraging. So, as Irene indicated, my name is Andrew Woolard. I am the Vice President of what we call CRM on the consumer side of Symantec. So Symantec is both an enterprise business and a consumer business. Our consumer products are LifeLock and Norton. Just curious, raise of hands, how many of you have LifeLock or Norton, if anybody? Oh, that's a good amount. Congratulations. Come see me for your gift afterwards. So yeah, we're a company of about 11,000, a little over 11,000 employees. About a third of those are on the consumer side. And my responsibility is CRM. We should probably call it customer success. I'll tell you a little bit about why maybe it's still CRM today. It's probably me being lazy and not changing the internal name of our organization. But in essence, the consumer business at Symantec encompasses both the Norton and LifeLock products. And so I'll just come out and say the majority of our company in the revenue streams are an annuity-based because we're subscription-based products. So roughly 80% of the consumer business comes through my back door. So every day I go to work and I can either be a hero, right? Because small movements in my space can make mass amounts of revenue and upside for the company. On the other side, if I don't do my job, we're hurting in a big way. So a lot of responsibility with that. We have a little over 20 million customers that we look after. And so how I measure success, certainly I have a financial number that I'm obligated to produce for the company. How we do that and meet that plan is through churn reduction, as well as how do we extend our subscriber relationship through education information to not only get them to continue using the products, but how do we educate them and inform them about others so that they will spend more money with us on that regard. So increasing average revenue per customer is kind of how we measure success on our side. My career journey's been a bit unique. Maybe I started off as an engineer. Very early on in my childhood, I remember, I'm going to date myself here, so some of you guys are going to say, what? When you used to buy a TV, the remote actually used to have a cord, right? And so we'd be in our house, and Dad would be sitting there with the cord and the remote and changing. Exactly, right? I got to explain it to you younger guys. Kind of like a VR goggle, no. And, us as kids, we would trip over this cord. It would knock over things on the table. And I remember the day, my dad brought home another TV, and it had what you guys can see a remote today with infrared and all of that do without a cord. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Look what can happen. So I think that's a point in my life where I kind of fell in love with technology a little bit. But as I started my career in different capacities, I've gone through a lot of consulting and IT in different companies, especially during the e-commerce days. That was a big thing. Spent some time at Nike as a brand, learned all about that, and then landed in Symantec, where, part of when you go to work, you got to love what you do. And not only do you love the job, but you got to love, doing something you feel good about. So being in cybersecurity, keeping people safe, kind of get a feel when I go home at night and talk to the kids, get to wear that cape. Hey, I did something good and kept people safe today. That's a piece of it. But as we talk about customer success and the different vantage points that I've had with my journey, I'll say probably my first interaction where I said, hey, there's something to this customer thing that I really have to think about was actually when I was an engineer. And my customer was another business group within the company. We were different buildings. They gave us requirements, and we went and built on those requirements. And as you guys can imagine, we would then build that and send it to them and find out, to our chagrin, that they weren't happy. And we didn't quite understand what was going on. We weren't sitting with them every day. We didn't understand the problems that they were having. So ultimately, what we delivered didn't meet their satisfaction levels. And so, whether I was crazy or not, I ended up taking my team and I said, hey, let's just go sit in the middle of these guys. Maybe we'll at least learn something, and they'll understand how hard we're working, nights and weekends, and they'll appreciate us more. But through that experience, I really learned, I was like, oh, there's something to this being close to a customer that really makes a difference. Overnight, things changed. We delivered a lot of value. They were happier, and so that's kind of when the light bulb, went off for me. But that's when, hey, there's something to this customer thing. And I think, even my career journey going through, an engineer, I spent time at support, I spent time in operations, I've spent time in strategy. So I've seen where customers, are super important to a business, and how their interactions differ throughout the entire company. I think how I got in this role of customer success today, I've never been in marketing. My career journey, my hope and aspirations at some point was, I'd love to be a GM of an awesome technology company someday, where I'm connecting technology and business problems with customers in a way that delights. And so I had engineering, I had strategy, I had operations, and I said, well, I don't have marketing and I don't have sales, but I don't know anything about them. And I luckily had a boss who said, hey, we've got this job, it's called CRM, it's retention focused. Once you kind of look at this and tell us what you think, is this something you'd be interested in doing, if it helps out with your career? And I was kind of like, I don't know if this is for me, but I went and looked at it and I said, in our business at the time, we were only retaining about 56% of our customer base. It was horrible. And then I looked at how much revenue was tied to that, and I said, man, 1 point improvement in retention is like $25 million. All I got to do is 1 point. This has got to be easy. Look at all that opportunity I have, right? I've got, 40 points of improvement I can make. That's a massive amount of impact to make. So anyways, that's how I kind of got where I'm at today. I'm probably being a little bit long-winded, but
no, that's perfect. That's perfect. So in contrast, I'll share a little bit about what I do, because my journey is pretty different than Andrew's. I'm a customer success evangelist and advocate. I see myself that way first before the actual job that I have in any company I happen to be working for. Right now I'm working for Lastline, also in the security space, so happy to wear the cape as well. It feels good to know that you're doing something that helps people. I work for a company called Lastline. We are on the B2B side, not on the B2C side. And we do enterprise-focused advanced threat protection, malware detection, and that's what we do. And my career, kind of how I got where I am, I kind of see customer having been in my DNA from the time I was a kid, actually. I grew up in a family business. It was a retail business. Small family businesses require a lot of repeat customers. If you're a business and it's retail, it happened to be a shoe store, happened to be an orthopedic shoe store. And we kept what I never would have thought of at the time as a CRM system in our company. We had index cards for every single customer that identified every single thing they bought and how we adjusted it for their particular orthopedic issue. And there was no computers, there was no nothing, but we had a CRM system. We had a lot of repeat business, and that's how I kind of cut my teeth in the customer success space. So I'm also, I advise and consult to a lot of early stage companies. I've been doing that for a number of years now. And I'm writing a book, which many of you know about, which will be done when it's done. I stopped predicting when I'll finish this book, but I do. Whenever the 750 words a week I write are finished with the whole outline, that's when it'll be done. I write about 4 to 5 pages a week. So it's a slow process. It's a labor of love. So I'm really interested in how customer success teams function in different environments, which is why I wanted to have this chat with Andrew. And different size companies, different go-to-market approaches, it fascinates me because there are many, many different paths to customer success. The main topics that we're going to kind of explore today are 3. So the first one is going to be how do you transform to an outside-in or customer-centric culture. So, Andrew talked a little bit about having that natural customer, sitting with the customer and being customer-centric and customer-focused, and I know he's done a lot of work at Norton in bringing that culture to the company as a whole. And that's one of my charters where I am today, so I'm really excited to learn how you did it. Maybe I can learn a few things. Our second topic is going to be leveraging a diverse experience, because you come from a different kind of background and I come from a different kind of background. How do you bring that experience to bear as a customer success partner or manager or executive? And then lastly, because everybody always cares about this, what gets measured? So how do you know what's there? So those are our 3 topics for today. So on the topic of transforming to outside in, you've been with Norton for a while. So share a little bit with us about what's changed as you transformed the company and how you did that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And we have gone through a lot of transformation and a lot of changes occurred during that time. Symantec is an engineering company by nature. I was talking to somebody in the hall as well about this, but we have a tendency to say, hey, somebody goes and builds this, we can do it ourselves. We can go build this, and our ideas are so good, and that's kind of a mentality that becomes pervasive, and I would say was reality, for quite a while. So you think of CRM or customer success, and you look at, hey, what's important? What are we trying to achieve? What are our goals? Oftentimes, you'd sit down with your team, and I would see the teams get together, and they would say, okay, I've got this idea. We think this is great. We see some data. Very analytical, very rational approach to this stuff. But it was always missing one thing, and it wasn't until we really got into the business of doing, decisions by testing that really helped change the mindset, I think, of my team first. And it started with our team, and then I'll talk a little bit about how it's gone out from there. But we'd have very strong debates about, hey, this idea is fantastic. And so we started putting those ideas out, and we would go and create campaigns and have different experiences for our customers. So today, just to give you guys some context, when I talk to my customers, different channels I have, obviously we talk through email. Customers call in, they talk to support. We talk through in-product communications. We use direct mail. So we have different channels where we can have a voice, with customers. And so we'd go and look at something and we'd create something and say, hey, this looks great. We get consensus around different things. And we go test it out. And ultimately what we found is our ideas typically lost out to ideas that went the step further and actually got in front of customers and got their opinions and got their feedback first, with that. So I think that was eye-opening, for the team in general of going, hey, our ideas might be good, but they're not as good as they could be if we actually went and had a conversation, with people, specifically. So I think that was big. And then an aha moment for me, part of my organization for a while, we had support directly a part of CRM, and I know a lot of organizations do it that way. We've since separated that out, but we're very close partners just because it's a call center. And my customer success and CRM, most of my team is not call center, though they help provide us a very important job. But during that experience, going and sitting with my agents, and I'll call it doing ride-alongs, was super insightful to understand customers calling in and having issues that I never thought of, and going, wow, that's a problem. Well, how big is that? Well, maybe we need to go get data around that. And so that kind of started the journey. More and more conversations were happening about that. And then, I think the biggest, one of the biggest transformations that we've had in our company around that is trying to get everybody, not only in my team, but across the entire company, really realizing that everything that they do, every decision that they make, has some impact on customers' willingness to continue doing business with you and to do more business with you. And so, one of the things that I even take part in today is our new hire training, going in and being an active role in that. And I always ask them, what function are you in? Oh, I'm in HR, I'm in finance, and I'm in engineering, I'm in support. And then I wait till they're all done, and then I say, no, you guys are all wrong. You guys are all in CRM. And then they go, what? What do you mean? And I say, well, think about it. Every finance decision you make to invest in something, in HR, all the employees that you get, are they customer focused? What you build as an engineer, in support when you talk to a customer, every one of those ultimately is going to end up having some impact on our ability to have success. And then, here's how much value we can unleash to the business if we're all rowing in the same direction, because this is what we can do, more for the customer. So I think that's been a big part of the transformation that we've gone through on Symantec side.
Great. So you mentioned that support is a separate organization. It's split out. I know a lot of CS organizations are structured with support in, and some are structured with support out. Describe how support escalations work and how you at Norton kind of work with support since it's in a different team.
Yeah, so different team, same family. So we work on the same issues. We have very close feedback with the teams. We share goals. We share metrics on the same target. So my performance goals are the same as, or at least we share some of the performance goals on the support side. Specific to customer escalations, depending on the issue, obviously if it's a technical issue, we don't get as involved in that other than to put some wood behind that to say, hey, we need to go solve that for customer success so that they don't run into issues. But if it's something that is a problem, we're going and prioritizing the issues that are coming through, looking at that data constantly, listening to customers. We're meeting customers. So even though we're not in the same organization, an escalation comes through. I've gotten on the weekends, I've gotten on calls, I've gotten emails. My team gets on them. If they're important enough, we dive in and we do it together. So it's not really, you can't think of organizational blinders. It's just one team. It's just two different, I'll say, functions, if you will, but closely tied together.
Great. And how do you manage your content for all your CRM interactions? Do you have a customer success platform, or what do you do there?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I wish I had an awesome answer for you guys and say we did it perfectly. It's actually an area where we don't do it extremely well. With the different acquisitions that we've had, as a large company, we're acquiring different companies. So one of the challenges you have is you bring in their systems, their content management platforms, and you struggle with that. And then, historically within our own company, we've also been very siloed. So different groups would, even though they're, we're talking about content, they might have, be using disparate systems as well. So we use multiple platforms today to do content. We use Responses, Oracle-based for email type content. We use Adobe for our web-based content. We have our own in-house system for our in-product content that we use, but we also have smattering of different content systems as well that we leverage for that. So a bit of a mixed bag. We're working on trying to consolidate that, and I think the big key for us as this has evolved, it's so important to be able to tie everything together. So, our email content being able to be used, similar with our in-product content, similar to mobile messaging we're doing, similar to our website, it all has to be kind of brought together. So, we're doing extra work today to kind of stitch some of that together. So.
Okay. So as we wrap up this first section about transforming to outside in, do you have any results that you can share about what's come about after the change? Any, how did you move the needle at that point, or how many, a couple points hopefully, and
I'm still here.
You're still here, and it's a few years later.
Yeah, I don't like to brag about some of this stuff, but
brag, Andrew.
I'm gonna brag away since you asked. So I mentioned when I joined at least in this role at late 2014, I was talking about it. We were at a 56% retention, and so going through, I think an outside in, customer focus has been key. Having the right metrics and clarity around those and alignment throughout your organization has also been key. But today we're sitting at an 80% retention rate. So every 1 point was double-digit millions of dollars. So we've unleashed a massive amount of value by doing those things. Doesn't mean we're at the finish line. There's a lot more. We still got 20%. And we got to maintain that and hopefully build on that. But I would look back and say it's been wildly successful when I compare, throughout the industry and all of that. And we've seen NPS increase, financials have increased, so it's been a pretty good success story.
Great, excellent. So our next section is kind of about how does a diverse experience, like your career journey, windy, many different things, bring you to the customer success or customer relationship management. So you talked about that diverse experience. Can you share with us kind of how this led you to be customer centric? You talked about the one example. Do you have other stories or examples of aha moments?
Yeah, I think, so I mentioned the engineering kind of example that turned the light on there. I think, also, as I mentioned, sitting and doing ride-alongs, I got to listen to, some customers and see some of the pain points that they were going through. And, you can imagine being on a phone call and, someone's, paid 60, 70, whatever dollars for your product. And they're calling up and they're crying because, they've lost all of their digital assets, their photos, years of this stuff, important documents that they had, and something has gone wrong in the whole situation, and so sometimes it's gut wrenching when you're going through that, and you look at that and you're like, okay, I gotta figure out how do we put on the cape and do something about that. But I think hearing those stories directly from your customers kind of softens your heart to that and gives you a view that ultimately it's important. And obviously none of us would be here today if we didn't have customers in that regard. I would also say in my experience, part of my career I was in, I managed design, user experience, just content related things, just the visual stuff people saw, and how did that work. And what was interesting to me, another aha moment was, stuff that seemed obvious, a pretty picture, a well laid out, experience, I think you'd put money down that, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to give us good results. Ugly sells sometimes. Bad experiences work. Some odd things, the way that you communicate things that you would never think about, seem to outperform, other things. And so, what we found out also, I think through that experience is not every customer is the same. You guys have probably all read Malcolm Gladwell and the spaghetti sauces and all of that, but that's been a big one, I think for us in our company. I'll talk a little bit about the transformation as well. We've kind of gone from both ends of the pendulum, where we've said, hey, let's, for scale and effect of the business, let's have a one-size-fits-all and have kind of a global approach to how we go after customers and customer success in general. On the other hand, we've switched gears and said, no, we've got to be more local. Let's switch everything to local. There's nuances with culture. There's nuances with the market. There's nuances with just customer needs. Let's do that. But every little initiative takes a lot of effort, and you get a little bit of value. And so through the aha moment there and some of the journeys that we've had, you got to be both. You can't be all global and one size fits all, and you can't be extremely local where you got a million different experiences and things going on. So it's got to be a bit of a mixed bag, because your large global things have the biggest impact and benefit to you, as a company and organization. But you don't want to leave all the pennies on the table either, right? You got a lot of little stuff that matters and makes a big difference, over time. So I would say, those are some of the bigger ones. I can continue talking, but I know we got a little time.
And
as well.
do you do a segmentation of your customers in order to kind of know how you manage the big global versus the local? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so obviously we segment based on where you're at. I just mentioned, but I'd say the first way that we segment is how do you subscribe with us? What products, what services do you have? That's number one, right? You may have this product, you may have that product, so we're going to obviously talk to those customers differently. The second thing we do is tenure. How long have you been with us? Are you brand new? Should we be talking to you about how to start off your product and service, educate you on what you have and all of that? Or have you been with us for 9 years and we want to talk about how loyal you are and all that? So tenure is a big one, and I think it's an important thing to also focus on. Then you've got the gender demographics, you got the age type stuff. We have our own demographics where we've kind of looked at different groupings of customers. Maybe you're we call it like an easy surfer, a confident customizer. So we've got our own internal ways of segmenting certain groups of customers who kind of fall in those
like
groups.
Personas?
Personas, yep. And then we also have segmentation where we're bringing in, not only our I'll say our first party data, you've got our partner data, second party data, and then also third party data. So, the credit card industries and all the other kind of DMP type data that you get where, what's a demographic of your household and your financials. I'd like to say we have a perfect system of being able to pull all that out. We're not quite there yet today, but we do segment on all of those and how we think about talking and communicating to customers.
Yeah, I think that's one area that's really different in B2B versus B2C. In B2C, you can get down to a persona because you really have a customer that's a person. Yep. In B2B, your customer is more like an account or a company, and there's many different people that interact with your product in the buying process and so forth. So I think the segmentation's pretty different. And I think there's things to learn both between the B2B, which has to look at the more complex structure, and the B2C, which can look at more of the personalization stuff. I think there's some stuff we can learn from each other in that area. So we talked a little bit in our prep about whether or not you use a customer journey. Mm-hmm. And you said you do use a customer journey. Can you describe your approach to how you kind of map out your customer journey? That's something I think almost everybody in customer success does.
Yeah, so it's probably pretty standard. I'm probably not going to have any eye-opening things here. So, our customer journey, I'll say our map in general, we look at it very holistically and say, okay, we've got the I'm aware, I shop, I buy, I download or install, I then use, use support, I renew, I upgrade, I churn, right? So we kind of outline all of those different areas and think about them as in different phases of the customer journey at those levels. The way that we use them is, every 6 months we kind of get together, not just within CRM or customer success, but across the CBU, consumer business unit. We get together and go through that with customers. So we do follow me homes. We actually go talk to customers and we try to understand where they're at in their journey. So we find each of those and highlight what's working, what's not working in each of those areas. Is it easy? Is it not easy? Are there pain points? And we create like a heat map of those areas. Are there red critical areas that we need to go solve? Are we pretty good in this area? And then we kind of heat map, each of those phases. Is our installation area, the area of focus? Is renewal an area of focus? And then we'll typically, go and look at those and then deep dive into those to figure out how we go solve for those. So that's kind of how we think about it and how we use it. Our customer journey in general is varied, when we think of just a Norton customer or LifeLock customer, but we boil it down to those larger buckets.
Yeah, and since you have both Norton and LifeLock, is it your organization's responsibility to try to upsell, cross-sell between the customers that might be LifeLock only or Norton only?
That's right. So, I'll evangelize here a little bit on our own part, right? Within Symantec on the consumer side, our goal and probably the big challenge I have this year is we're trying to create a new category, right? We've been in the cybersecurity space on the consumer side for a while, device protection. Where we haven't been and where we're bringing things together in a strategic way is we're trying to create a new digital safety category. And that means a lot of things to a lot of people, but it is your device protection, it's your identity protection, it's your protection when you are traveling, like through wireless or on the go, and it's also at home, your Internet of Things and protecting you and your family there with your network above and beyond the router. And so, with our two companies coming together, maintaining those relationships individually, but trying to then bring them together since they're very symbiotic and have very similar kind of customer profiles as well. Somebody who wants identity protection typically also wants protection on the other areas as well. But the challenge is, how do you go out and communicate digital safety as a category, and how do you create awareness to somebody, and how do you get them wanting to engage with you to even learn about that and get educated to want to extend that relationship? So that's the stuff we are working on now.
Yeah, and probably the pretty pictures don't hit home as much as the pain points would of you have the gut-wrenching, you talked about the gut-wrenching, listening to someone who's lost all their stuff, yeah. Right? That's what people don't want to have happen to them, right?
That's right.
So,
yeah, and one of the things, bring up a good point, fear marketing works a lot, especially in our space. Hey, watch out for this big bad thing that's going to happen to you, buy now or learn more now on that stuff. Absolutely works. What's interesting though, and I think another aha moment for us recently, over the past couple of years is it's how do you get customers to feel value? Right? That's a big piece. How do you get them to feel value? Not just even see the value or use the value. Those are a big piece. But how do you get them to feel the peace of mind, even in a positive way around what you're doing for them and how these things work together? But big aha for us is getting them to feel the value along with experiencing that is way more powerful.
Yeah, I think value realization is probably the hardest job of a customer success person, whether you're an executive or a customer success manager. If you can't tie that customer to the value you're providing them, then you have a real high risk of losing that customer. They have to have the value.
And on that note, I think engagement, for those of you who are focusing on, renewals and churn, one of the big aha moments for us as well was And it's the old adage of, customers who use your product or service 2 or more times are like 60% more likely to buy or renew. Spending a lot of time and effort like we've done, getting customers to engage with your product and service, getting them to use the features, not just let them know about them, but actually physically getting them to use it and experience that elevates the value proposition immensely. And we saw a lot of very positive impact by having a lot of campaigns focused on not upsell, not cross-sell, not getting them to use, or learn more things, but just getting them to use what they have in those ways.
Great. So I'm going to move on to our third area, which is around measures. So what are the metrics that you track overall, and how did they change when you moved from to the outside in kind of a focus? What did you add or subtract?
Yep, so I mentioned some of the metrics that we use at a high level and how I measure my success, churn and average revenue per customer. So, when I think about what do I communicate up, right? It's, what's our subscriber counts? How are we doing with churn? What's the average revenue per customer? How are we doing with conversion? I'd say the biggest thing we've also added that I'm held accountable for in our company as well is NPS, so Net Promoter Score, and going out, talking to customers and understanding, is that improving? Is it decreasing? And how can you improve that? So those are the big ones that I kind of communicate up that my leadership is interested in. Across our team, though, we measure all sorts of things, above and beyond that, because those are the output metrics. There's a lot of metrics that you look at across the customer journey, across the different flows you have, engagement rates, that then lead to churn. So, one of the big ones that we have is what's our active opt-out attempts? Like how many people are trying to get out a subscription, with us, both at the call center and online directly. That's a good indicator of a point where we lose customers, and so we try to put programs in there to try to say, hey, but wait, and here's why you want to stay with us. So what are the programs that you can attack those? Other metrics that we look at is in billing. It's actually a big one. I would say if it's a big area to look at, not only people that actively opt out, but passively opt out. So people that when you're billing, you're in an automatic relationship and you're billing, and they're failing. They may not have
Updated their credit card.
Updated their credit card. Can you get them to update the credit card? They may not have a limit. Can you get them to give you another payment method? Maybe they need to change their plan. So do you want them to call in? I think it's a big area. That was actually one of the big ones that we focused on as well that we weren't looking at a lot, and we've made a big improvement with. Not only NPS with customers, but just installation rates. Are they actually using and installing and using what they've paid for? We survey them throughout the year. So are there certain points where satisfaction dips, and we need to go and focus at that point in the journey with them on how do we improve that up? So there's a lot of metrics. If somebody's interested in something specific, I can go into it, but a lot of stuff that we look at on a daily basis that gives us insight into how we're doing.
Do you measure any cost metrics? I happen to be, most people who know me in the room know, I happen to be a big fan of the cost to retain a customer. Do you do anything around that?
Yeah, so, that was one of the other big aha moments for me wanting to get into this role, right? The cost of acquisition is quite expensive. I can't share all the exact numbers with you guys, but it's quite high. The cost to retain somebody is like $6. For us, or less, depending on what they're doing. So I'm kind of averaging for you guys. But magnitude's cheaper to retain somebody and extend a relationship, with them. And so, and obviously with scale, the more customers you have, it drives those numbers down. But that's a big, kind of a selling point and opportunity of, hey, we got to keep a lot more customers. Because we also had a lot of people, I'll say, reacquiring. They were going back into retail. Every year, and we'd have to pay the retailers and give them rev share to go and just continue having a subscription again. And so, what do we need to do? Why are they going into retail it was another listening post for us and talking to customers. What makes you go back to retail? You got to get in your car. You got to waste your gas. You got to talk to somebody. Is that better? Why do you do that? And so what can we do to kind of change that conversation and get you to want to do it more conveniently and cost effectively for you to do it directly online? So.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about you've done your cohorts around tenure, right? And you have customers that have been with you for a very long time and customers that have been with you who are new.
Yep.
And obviously this going back to the retail to buy kind of screws that up a little bit because they become a new customer with a new license that they didn't renew, right?
That's right.
So how do you, kind of change around those measurements by your different segments and also through your channels?
How do we keep people from reacquiring?
Not specifically how do you keep them from reacquiring, but do you measure different things on the retail channel versus what you measure on your online channel and so forth?
Yep. So, retail, our big focus is they haven't done business with us directly. Right? They've paid a retailer. They're not really in subscription, with us. And so a big goal that we have is how do we get them to give us their credit card, get in a subscribable relationship with us, and so how do we incentivize them to do that? And so we have programs that we measure around campaigns on how successful we are at getting them to basically come on board and do business with us directly, and what can we give them or what's at stake for them to want to do that. Somebody who comes through another channel, and I would say our success rate is much different there than, somebody who buys directly online, from us, or maybe it came pre-installed on a laptop or a device somebody had. So we look at all of those channels differently, and they all have different metrics and success for us on, getting them into the franchise and then also keeping them. So 10 years different across the different channels. So yeah, all very unique.
Okay, great. So I want to get some Q&A going from the audience. So we're going to take some questions from you guys, and every few questions we have a question to ask back to you. So let's start with you here.
Hi, Donna Leopard.
I don't.
And so much. What approaches do you have for maintaining mature customers? So is there a different way that you engage with them?
Yeah, so it's a loyalty program that we've kind of built out. And the catch is, we think of Amazon Prime as a good example, right? A lot of people buy Prime. They add more services to it all the time. You get the free shipping. It's hard not to validate, hey, I want to pay the $99 again to kind of stay that or stay in that subscription. And so kind of using that same similar model, we've come up with ways of giving our customers more value and services and things that are outside of what they paid for. And so if you've been with us 1 year, you're getting something. If you've been with us 2, you're getting a little bit more. You're getting us 3. So creating more stickiness and kind of more cost. If they leave, they're giving up a lot more. And then, obviously it's a natural conversation. If they're at a churn point, you're able to talk to them and say, hey, yeah, if you leave now, you're also giving up, all these benefits. Are you sure you want to do that? And it changes the nature around. So that's a big piece of it as well. And, giving them access to, maybe beta things if they're interested in doing, early access to different products. So there's a lot of stuff in there, but definitely having a loyalty type program is key. It's definitely been a needle mover for us.
Great. There was one in the back. We go back there, and then we'll come back up here.
Hi, just a question about marketing, pre-customer and post-customer, where all that content comes from, what you see as the big difference, et cetera, anything you'd like to share.
So at our company, we have a marketing organization who's focused on acquisition. And then obviously my team is focused on once they've purchased, we go through there. So as far as content is concerned, we use the same content platforms. When we do large campaigns, we go in with thinking, hey, we want to create a campaign that is going to be useful for acquisition, but also can have a voice for current customers. So we launched recently our new, home router security, right? We put a whole campaign together around that, was geared towards acquisition, but then we also leverage that same content in ways that we could say, how do we have the same conversation with our existing customers so they could go ahead and add that on as well and get in game and do pre-orders and all of that. So they're different. Paid search is going to be a lot different in the content that they have. So there's a lot that's not shared too. But the big things, we've kind of said, hey, we've got to share those, and there's a lot of leverage we get through that. But we use the same content platform.
Do you have a content platform that you use? Is it
Adobe.
Adobe. Okay, that's what you said before. That's right. Okay, great. More?
Yeah. Hi, Andrew. It's in regards to the first topic, the transformer tie-in. I would like to know if you have a VOC process and how you close the feedback loop with customers towards the product side.
So I missed the first.
VOC, voice of customer.
And how do we close the feedback loop with them on that?
Yeah, to the product side.
Oh, to the product side. Yeah, so great question. So within our support organization, and I mentioned, I used to have part of that, which we called the renewal center. So if you were calling in to fire us, essentially, you wanted to get out of that relationship, you were calling into, this contact center, and they would, collect the feedback on, why are you wanting to leave, and what's going on, with that. And so we have different kind of VOC collection points, if you will. So every support case is a VOC opportunity. Every kind of renewal center, what we call renewal, if you're calling in to cancel, is a VOC opportunity for us. And so we pull those in aggregate, and we have a way of kind of identifying what categories are they in the first place, and then how do we kind of stack rank the severity of those? Like, are there a lot of customers having the same issue? And then, I think the feedback loop then gets back into product to say, hey, customers are, finding it difficult with this feature, or this isn't working. And then we have data, right? So that's how we back up the importance of the priority. Go, hey, this thing is getting, 2 million customers are having this issue. Obviously, that rises right to the top. So using data to quantify, how big of an issue something is, allows us to go in and working with the product team, say, here's how we should prioritize, what you guys are working on and how you fix or build out new features as well. So that's kind of how we go about doing it. Is that what you were asking? Okay.
There was a question. Oh, here next. Yes.
Quick question with regards to your impressive renewal rate, right? 56% to 80%. Talk about competition. Did these customers you got it from your competitor, and likewise, when you lose from the churn standpoint, why do you lose, and where do they go? Because they need protection.
Yeah, so good question. Are we getting customers from our competition? Yes. Are they getting customers from us? Yes. It goes both ways a bit. I'd like to think that, obviously, we're the market leader for paid subscribers, with that on the Norton side and the LifeLock side. But it also is a commodity, right? I'll say there's a lot of players in this space. And when I say commodity, I would not say our product is commoditized, but I think the perception of it is commoditized. People believe, I got it, it's good enough. There's freeware out there. Also, it's good enough.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of competitors, some good, some not so good. But it is what it is. So you have customers going, both ways. Part of our job is how do we distinguish ourselves? So, when you think about, hey, Andrew, how do you keep customers from switching? Because it's also not very difficult to switch, right? It's pretty easy to go and get a different, I'll say, AV solution. And so how do you have a conversation and communicate to customers what the differences are and why what they have is something that they need to stick with is a big thing. But I would say definitely the ones that churn, they're leaving for somebody else. They're leaving for freeware. And then there's some that are like, hey, I've got certain devices that I don't think there's any risk, as an example.
Disconnected devices. And
Yeah, or just people, I'll say lack of education, right? They don't realize that what they're doing, hey, I don't feel like my iOS device, can be hacked, right? There's not a lot in the news around that. But, I go and I connect at a Starbucks and I use their unsecured Wi-Fi, and, a guy right next to me can use freeware and see all of my passwords as I'm logging into Facebook and I'm logging into Instagram, and now he can get in and understand I went to a certain conference, here's my friends, and now he can want to target me and go, hey, I saw you at this conference last week, here's a document that I thought you might be interested in, and it's relevant because you're like, yeah, I was at the conference last week, okay, and I click on that document, now I've downloaded a virus, and there's just all sorts of stuff that happened to poor people that they just don't know about. But yeah, that's a challenge that we face all the time on, educating customers.
So, hey Andrew, this might be piggybacking a little bit on the comments that you just made, but I'm curious, fear mongering, like the fear marketing
Yep.
stuff works really well. Like when you're describing all that, I want to go buy LifeLock.
Yep.
But then after a year, my device is not hacked. I'm fairly secure, and then I don't see value. So I think my question, kind of long-winded, is, but how do you make them feel the value, especially because bad things haven't happened,
Yep.
and to make sure, hey, bad things didn't happen to you, you actually stayed safe, is kind of hard to do.
Yep.
And how that might translate into the more B2B world.
That's a good question. So you definitely hit the sweet spot, right? That's the problem that you got to solve. And I'll say candidly, if you hit to the rewind button in my company, there's a lot of people, a lot of engineers, because we were engineering-led, engineering kind of product to begin with. A lot of people believed, hey, we're a bit of an insurance policy, but we've got software that runs in the background. People don't want to be bothered by us, right? Don't communicate. And I had to fight that so hard. Do not go talk to customers. It's annoying to them. We do a job. That's what they hire us to do. Don't go do that. But to your point, how do you make them feel anything? Because if they don't get hacked, they may feel, okay, you're doing something because I haven't been hacked, but did something actually happen, and did I need it? So we've flipped that around, and so a part of it is you're not hacked, but how do we expose to you what we have done for you lately? That's a big thing. So can you expose, hey, our stuff works in the background. We know, how many phishing attacks did we keep out of your inbox from you? How many attacks, through your firewall? So we've got all that data. It's just how do you expose it to somebody going, okay, yeah, they're running in the background when a virus outbreaks. So we found, one of the biggest things, we have a virus or a breach that occurs. You guys have seen Equifax and Alteryx and all those big ones that have gone on recently, Yahoo, et cetera. How do you let customers know and say, hey, this happened? You'd be first to market with it. So one of the things we did is how do we quickly and rapidly respond with events to say, hey guys, this happened, but guess what? You're safe. We got your back. Right? We get so many people that will respond to us on Twitter, on social, back to our emails. All we do is say, hey, there's this big virus that just has gone out the door, but you know what? You can relax. Our product, keeps you safe from that. And they're like, great. So it's doing those types of things to get them, peace of mind and let them know that you're doing something. But that's something you got to do, expose. So from a B2B perspective, I think the big thing is how do you expose what you're doing for them and the value? And part of that is understanding what do they want. Like our customers, when we talk to them, they wanted peace of mind. So how do you go and deliver that in a way where they're constantly getting reinforced? I have peace of mind. I don't need to worry. And then you carry that through. So whatever it is in your B2B situation is, find your customers, what do they want? And then how do you reinforce that value, through communication, through your actions, through, whatever that is. I would say how I'd answer that.
So before we take the next question, I want to throw a question out to the audience from us. So do you want to give yours first, or do you want me to give the one I figured out?
Why don't you ask yours, and then I'll...
Okay, you'll go last. So mine is for all you folks out there. Anybody willing to share what you've done in your company to flip from inside out to outside in? Anyone else made that journey?
Who wants the microphone?
You do. Well, we've just had, I've actually had to train the teams on, having an outside-in mindset, looking at the metrics that were already in place and saying, these are very inwardly focused. We need to flip those, think about them the other way around. Instead of thinking, what kind of clients are beneficial to us? What kind of clients are going to be most able to gain rapid value from us?
Anyone else? There's one. Just a second, wait for the microphone. I like to watch
Run,
Bill
Bill, run.
He'd rather ski. We don't have any snow here.
So I work at a primarily engineering-driven company called Branch Metrics, and one thing we've done is to provide full visibility into the customer support issues that come in. So
To your customers?
No, internally into the entire org. So we have the all-company channel where every support request that comes in is posted via Slack, so that the entire company has visibility into it. Some of the things, it's very tactical, but some of the results we've seen from that are like you get 3 or 4 same type of questions, and an engineer pings us saying, hey, do you think this is happening often? Can we find a solution so people stop writing in about these kind of things? So that's more like engineers thinking about how do I solve these from a root cause level as opposed to just customer support teams solving them.
Yeah, we do something very similar. I think it's impactful. We actually put TV screens by the engineers, QA department, and all their departments they can see. And I think very similar to the customer, complaints or issues, funnel right to the top, and you can see the aggregate numbers. So it's kind of always in their face of, these are the issues that we got to deal with. So it's very powerful. I love that. It's great.
Alex?
Yeah, hi. So I'm at a newly founded company that's been in business for a year. We had the benefit of starting from the outside in from the very beginning, which has been awesome.
That's great.
But one thing that we learned recently was just letting other customers know about each other's journeys and each other's issues. So that normally in most organizations you try to hide the type of things that a customer might have because I don't want another customer to find out about that. But normally now what we're doing is sharing what another customer's journey to success has been like, because it's different coming from a customer than it is coming from us. So that's been a little bit more dramatic in terms of the NPS scores that we're getting from, because it's coming from other customers. So
That's great. Thank you. So we'll take one last question. We got one more comment, and then we'll take our last question. And then Andrew has a question back to the audience, too.
Yep.
We'll end on that.
Good.
Hi, I work for Cisco. So in our company, the way we've done it in customer success is we've rolled out best practices per vertical, per use case. And we've shared that out with our customers, and we've actually said which customers have actually followed those best practices and shown that outwards.
Interesting.
So that's a part of our journey, and we say in this journey, this particular customer of this kind of vertical did this. So.
Great. Thank you. A question? Yep. Last question.
You spoke about some of your personal aha moments. With the rest of the organization outside of the CRM organization, when shifting from an inside out to outside in mindset, is there a common aha moment for other people when they get it, when they realize that they need to be thinking the other way?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the perfect recipe. I'll just say how it happened in our group, right? I think every one of us is motivated by performance, right? We all want to do it good in our jobs. And, typically, revenue talks. And so, I think as we were able to expose the opportunities and demonstrated the amount of revenue we could generate with CRM by having this outside, in perspective, it's amazing how many people want to join the party, right? Everybody kind of wants to be a part of something that's going well, right? And so, for me, it was going and talking to, the billings and payments team. It was going and talking to the engineers and kind of connecting them and saying, hey, we've got this thing going on. Having a customer focus is helping us achieve these results. Hey, you guys, if you guys could do this, and also have that same mindset. Together, we can come together and build this amount of value in. And so, even as we're going through, planning processes, right now it's, they're starting to come on board and all wanting to contribute with that because they see it makes a difference. So, being able to demonstrate it first, which is kind of hard. I don't think you can go sell something that doesn't have some proof points yet. But once you can get some of those proof points, it's easy then to go in and kind of connect those dots.
Great. And you had a question out to the audience.
Yeah, just completely selfish here, but those of you, and there was a decent number who raised your hand that had Norton or LifeLock. I'll say anybody who has another product in the industry, because I know there's some other people here from our competition, et cetera. Those of you who use the product, what could we be doing? What could I be doing? I'll use this point of customer feedback. What could we be doing better in kind of the customer success area that you guys think that we're not doing today or should be doing?
You had a hand over there.
Hi. So I've been using Apple products for a while now, and I did not know that I could use, I need a semantic software on my iPhone, because I always think that, okay, Apple is taking care of me. I need not download I need not pay for like semantic to have that. One is that. The other thing is, I know you guys acquired the company recently.
LifeLock?
LifeLock, yeah, sorry. So LifeLock, I've been using LifeLock for some time, but I do not see any of the ads for that on my Facebook page or my LinkedIn page, but always on TV there's a long running ad. I don't know why. The need for dollars have to be spent on TV with social media, other than, yeah.
Yeah, so, LifeLock's been in a different journey, which has been interesting. They've been very acquisition focused because the market had been growing. And so we are spending lots of money in all sorts of different channels, and TV and long form and all that has been very kind of successful. And so it's helped build, kind of the market. So that's kind of why, we continue to do it. The ROI continues to be there. I don't think that's the case. You don't see Norton on TV, very much, right? So, I think you use every bullhorn you can to try to get your name out there and your brand, because the brands are at different levels. Norton, a lot more people know Norton than LifeLock. I think LifeLock is increased, but that's kind of why. Any other feedback on customer success, like what we could be doing better that we're maybe not doing today?
Yeah, you guys are all customer success experts.
That's right.
What should we be thinking about that we haven't talked about here today?
Or maybe I'll even ask a second question if it's easier. What's something that you guys are worried about, or what do you guys believe is maybe the next big customer success issue that's maybe not obvious that we should be thinking about and solving for?
What's the next challenge? I know people have opinions about that. Shrisha does.
So Andrew, one thing about using Norton, that I've always worried about is the impact of the performance of the laptop, right? So I think that's where, we talked about the value, demonstrating value, where you can say, we didn't allow anything bad happen to you, but we also made sure, some performance metrics would have an impact. That's my perspective.
Great. That's great feedback.
Here and then in the back.
What I'm mostly worried about are all the other devices that I have in my home. I mean, my next refrigerator will be more intelligent than my laptop was, right, 10 years ago, but I cannot put Norton on there. Mm-hmm. So really having that
you can now.
Holistic, well, okay. But,
you got the home gateway, right?
That's really in the catch-up game, right? How to tackle everything, because you can have the most secure house, and if you leave one window open, there you got it. So, anyways, that's my feedback.
Good feedback. Thank you.
One in the back.
So I think one thing you could do for us is I think like a more holistic view of what you do would be helpful because I tend to segment your products. And I think you maybe said earlier that's something you're going to do as a company. And then on your second question relative to customer success, there's this struggle with auto renewal, like where it feels kind of sleazy, right? I mean, it gets this like Jim, yeah, oh great, like don't tell him it's going to renew, don't say anything to him, yeah, got him for another year type of mentality. And I think that's a thing, that's a challenge that like faces us all with auto renewals and multi-year contracts, that it's just so much easier not to say anything and pray they don't go away. And I think that's a big challenge for us in CS is don't be afraid of the customer, like be confident that you've added value so you don't mind saying to them, hey, we're going to take more money from you.
Yep.
Anyway, so I think that's a big challenge for all, and I would guess in your business and maybe as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up. So we used to, I think, make things confusing for customers that cause pain on ourselves, right? We used to allow customers to choose, do you want to be in subscription or do you want to kind of buy it as a product? And so how customers kind of visualize what we were doing in that relationship, it's kind of confusing. And we used to get a lot of feedback like what you just described. Oh, I didn't realize I was even in auto renewal and some of those things. So we had to take a very concerted effort just to say, hey, we are subscription only. The only way to do business with us is subscription. Here's how we work. Here's the value that we provide. And by the way, yeah, we are going to, almost be loud about you will get auto renewed. That's how this thing works, just like Netflix and every other subscription that you may or may not have. But you can cancel anytime. We're always going to give you, billing notifications and all that, and make sure that those things are in place. So definitely it was a hurdle for us, but we've seen it smooth out quite a bit since we really took that big switch over and just said, make it easy for everybody. It's not a this way or that way. We are only subscription. It's not a box on a shelf anymore.
Alex?
Well, one of the challenges that I can foresee is just being in subscription or SaaS-based models is moving to usage-based models where your campaign begins at the moment, like the journey begins at the moment they sign and they renew, but now there's a lot of models out there where it's pay as you go, right? And I think our responsibility, our efforts in customer success are going to multiply as we now have to retain customers at, if you look at AWS, it's hourly, right? So that's something that I'm still in a moment where it's like yearly, 3-year contracts, right? But there are customers asking me like, what about a usage-based model? Why can't you license that way? Well, we have a responsibility to our investors, stuff like that, but that doesn't matter.
That doesn't
right?
fly.
That's definitely inside out.
Customers won't care.
Right? So that's something that I keep running into a lot more often in the past couple years.
Interesting. Sanjeev?
So on what could be better for those of us guys and gals who play sort of head of IT at home, I'd love to see something that's like, we'll take care of all of these devices and all of these services and the garage door opener, and because it's just too much to do individual things. It's just impossible to keep track of. You never know. So a more holistic approach is, as you were saying, the refrigerator and the garage.
Yep.
I mean, like our garage door opener, that's like, I can open it from here, but I'm sure other people can probably open it if they know what to do. So a bigger picture, I think, would be helpful.
Yeah, check out our Norton Core. We'll let you do all that. You can manage all your devices in one shop. Your kids, keep them from surfing at night, doing all that kind of stuff. Put them to bed, all that good. All your devices. Well, if they're like mine and they used to stay up till 1 in the morning on their phones doing stuff.
On the device, yeah. So just a couple closing remarks. So Andrew, what message do you want to leave this audience with as we wrap up here? Is there one thing that you think they should take away?
You need Norton and LifeLock? No. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great space. Obviously, I wouldn't be in it and wouldn't be here if I didn't think, obviously it's an important thing for companies. I think it's interesting as, I look at a company we just acquired, LifeLock and our own company and the different journeys that companies are in. And it's interesting, there's a tipping point that happens in a company when they start realizing, hey, we have more value in the customer base that we have now than all the other activities that we have. We can exponentially, create and generate more value with this awesome asset. And so, I think the thing to leave you guys with is, this is a big space. I think if you're looking at what can be done, I think it's kind of ripe for making improvements. And I think about the future of, we used to talk in one size fits all type of communications, and kind of where we're going is, we've got to somehow take a DMP mindset with a CRM tool and smash them together and be able to change the conversation from in context or triggered based conversations to I'm having a one-to-one conversation with each of my customers, whether you're B2B, and it's super hard when it's B2C because you're talking millions of customers, potentially that are all over the place. And so, I think, obviously you guys are in a good career spot, and there's lots that you guys can probably do in this space. So kudos to you guys.
Great. And I have one thing to leave you all with too, which is distill the difference between those things in your business that you can turn outside in, as opposed to inside out, and the tactical things that you have to do for your business, which are naturally inside out. You have to do some things. You have to track your metrics that are inside out. There's things you have to do. So distill the difference. And wherever you can, take your outside in focus, but you have to do the day-to-day sometimes on an inside out. Well, that's my thing to leave you all with. So I want to once again have a big round of applause. Thank you, Andrew, for giving us your evening. To Service Rocket for this lovely space, and to Strikedeck for sponsoring. So, and all of you for being here. Thank you.